माला में सिमरूं मैं तेरा नाम। दादा श्याम, दादा श्याम। सांसों की माला में सिमरूं मैं तेरा नाम। दादा श्याम, दादा श्याम।
My very dear and sweet children of the St. Mira schools, my dear brothers and sisters, it is such a joy to be in your midst this morning. If there is one lesson which the Mira school has to teach us, it is this lesson of giving. Sadhu Vaswani said on one occasion, he said, I have but one tongue. If I had 1,000,000 tongues, with every one of those tongues, I would still utter the one word, give, give, give. How true it is that to give is to live. Those that give not are no better than dead souls. Would you like to be living entities, or would you like to be dead souls? You would like to be living entities, isn't it? Then you must learn to give. Give. The day on which you have not given something to those that are in need is a lost day indeed. There was one queen, the Queen of Hungary. She believed in giving. Every day she would leave her palace and come to one slum or the other, one quarter of the poor people or the other, and give them something. And whenever she gave them something, she said to them, you also must learn to give. And they said to her, what shall we give? We have nothing to give. We are so poor. We have nothing to give. And she would say to them, at least you have sweet words to give. At least you have a sweet smile to give. A smile is something which you can give and also keep to yourself. Supposing I give you a smile, you will smile in return, but my smile will not become less on that account. I will continue to smile. Smile is something which you can give and still keep to yourself. If there is anything else, if I give this handkerchief, then I cannot keep it with myself. If I give this watch, I cannot keep it with myself. But smile is something that you can give and still keep to yourself. Give, give, give. Let this be the law of your life. My dear children, what more shall I say to you today? Children are fond of stories, isn't it so? You are fond of stories, isn't it so? Somebody said to me, somebody put to me this question. Somebody said to me, when you were a child, you must have read or you must have been told stories which touched you to the very depths and which influenced your life. Tell us the very first story that you remember, that you read or you heard, which influenced your life. Stories are very good, but stories must change our life. They must influence our life. They must influence our daily actions. And I was told, which is the story which you remember, but which affected your life, which influenced your life. It took me a little time to think what answer to give. Then I remembered. When I was a student at the school, I was told a story. It is the story of a tortoise. You know what a tortoise is? You probably pronounce it as tortoise. Tortoise, but I think the correct pronunciation is tortoise. Your teachers will be able to tell you better. There was a tortoise. He was given to talking. He talked and talked. When he started talking, he would never stop. He would never listen to anybody else. He went on talking and talking and talking. One day there were two ducks. They had flown from India to Manasarovar. Manasarovar is a place in the Himalayas. When it is very hot here, it is quite cool there. Therefore the ducks, they fly. They are migratory birds. They migrate from one place to another. And they made friends with this tortoise who lived in the Mansarovar lake. Then the time came for them to return, because the season of winter was setting in. The ducks cannot bear to live in the cold of winter in the Himalayas. So they wanted to return to India. And they said to the tortoise, "Our friend, you are our friend. How good it would be if you could accompany us. We are returning to our winter home, which is in India. What a wonderful thing it will be if you could accompany us." And the tortoise said, "How I wished I could accompany you, but I cannot fly. I do not have wings. I can only crawl." A tortoise has 4 feet on which it crawls. And before he could talk any further, because once he started talking, he would never stop. Before he could go any further, the ducks told him, "That's a very simple matter. We can take a stick. We will hold the 2 ends of the stick in our beaks, and you will have to catch hold of the stick with your teeth. Do you think you are capable of remaining silent for so long?" The tortoise felt hurt. He said, "What is it that the ducks take them to me? They think I cannot be silent. I will be silent for as long as they want me to be silent." And he said, "I am ready. I will hold on to the stick at the center, at the 2 ends. You will hold that stick in your beaks, and we will all fly together." Then you know what happened. Maybe you know this story. The three, the trio, they began to fly. Men in the fields and men in the streets, they looked up and they found this strange spectacle. Two ducks holding a stick in their beaks and the tortoise clinging to that stick. And these men naturally began to comment. They said, "What is this that is happening?" The tortoise forgot that he had to be silent. The tortoise immediately opened his mouth, and the tortoise wanted to tell the people, "What is it to you if my friends are carrying me? Why don't you mind your own business?" He meant to speak those words. But the moment he opened his mouth to speak, he opened his lips to speak, down he fell. And that was the end of the tortoise. And do you know where he fell? The tortoise fell in the courtyard of the palace of the king of Banaras. The name of the king of Banaras was Brahmadatta. Brahmadatta. Brahmadatta was very talkative. Brahmadatta would not let anyone else talk to him. He talked and talked and talked. He would never stop. But nobody could tell him anything because he was the king. He had a very wise counselor. And this counselor was waiting for an opportunity to be able to teach him this one lesson. It is good to talk, but we must talk within limits. We must also listen. It is always better to listen than to talk. And when this tortoise fell in the courtyard of the palace of the king, people wondered. As soon as the tortoise dropped down on the floor, it broke into two. As I said to you, that was the end of the tortoise. But the people wondered, from where did this tortoise come? All over Banaras, people wondered. They said, how is it that a tortoise fell from the skies in the courtyard of our king's palace? The counselor took this opportunity. The counselor told the king, "This is what has happened. Would you like to see that tortoise?" And the king said, "Of course, I would like to see the tortoise that has fallen in the courtyard of my palace. From where did it come?" Then when the king came and saw the tortoise, the counselor told him that this is what had happened once. Once two ducks were flying in the air, carrying this tortoise. The tortoise was asked not to speak a single word, not to utter a single word. The tortoise was very talkative. They had warned the tortoise, but the tortoise could not probably control himself, and this is what happened to him. And the counselor told the king, this is what happens to every talkative person. And may I tell you, when I was in the school, because I had read many books, I was fond of books. I was not fond of sports. People ask me even now, have you ever played cricket? Have you ever played football? I tell them, no, I did not have opportunity to do so because I was fond of books. I used to spend my time in the library. And because I had read so many books, I thought I knew everything that was needed to be known, and I became very talkative. People naturally would have wondered, when is this fellow going to stop, so that we also could talk something? But I would never stop. When I learned the story, it made a profound effect on my life. And I said, I must not talk that much. And that is what happened to the king of Banaras. The king of Banaras said, I have been talking so much. If this is the end of the person or of the creature that talks too much, then I had better reform. And from that day onwards, the king learned the lesson of silence. This is a great lesson that each one of us has to learn. Be silent. It is better to listen than to talk. It is better to listen than to talk. Let the other person talk. I have seen at our meetings that we have from time to time, there are people who want to prove their point. So they talk a little, but somebody will interrupt them. And this person would say, but let me finish, but let me finish, but let me finish. We don't let them finish. We interrupt them. It is always better to listen than to talk. This is a great lesson which I learned when I was in the school. I don't think I was in the primary school then. I was in the secondary school. You all belong to the secondary school, isn't it? Primary also, yes. This is a great lesson that each one of us has to learn. Learn to be silent. Learn to become a lover of silence. Concerning Buddha, we are told a moving incident in his life. Buddha, when he became the enlightened one, he was not Buddha when he was born. When he was born, he was Gautama. Then after 6 years of intense tapasya in the forest of Rajgriha, he attained to enlightenment. He had a darshan. And this darshan made him a Buddha. Before that he was only Gautama. Now he becomes Gautama Buddha. And Gautama Buddha, when he becomes enlightened, then he has a vision of all the births through which he had passed before he arrived at his present birth. There are books on Jataka tales of Gautama Buddha. You must be having some of them in your library. And in those tales, Gautama Buddha spoke of the births through which he had passed. Each one of us, before we have entered this birth, we have gone through many births. The scriptures tell us that everyone has to pass through 84 lakhs of births before you get this human birth. Howsoever that be, I do not know if each one of us has to pass through 84 lakhs of births, but we have to pass through many births. And some of those births, Gautama Buddha describes in those tales. He says, during one of my births, I was a prince. I was born a prince. And he says, I was born a prince of the king of Banaras. I was born as a son of the king of Banaras. But since my birth, I did not open my lips to speak. I had learned the lesson of silence, and I wanted to be silent. And the king, my father, the queen, my mother, they were naturally worried. They said, "This child of ours is completely dumb. He does not speak at all." And the king sent forth a proclamation throughout his realm that if ever anybody can hear the prince speak a few words, we will give him a rich reward. So many people, they used to follow the prince. He went here, he went there. They used to follow him to find out if ever he spoke a single word. But the prince was absolutely silent. Then one day, the prince was standing in a forest when a hunter came. A hunter came and felt that there were some birds on a tree. But the hunter could not find out where those birds were sitting exactly. Then one of the birds made a sound. As soon as the bird made a sound, the hunter knew where the bird was hiding. And immediately, with his arrow, he shot the bird. And the bird fell down. When the bird fell down, the prince who had never spoken a single word, the prince went and looked at this bird and said to the bird, "Why did you speak? Why did you speak?" The prince meant to tell him that if you had not spoken, you would not have died. Your death is due to the fact that you spoke. The hunter heard the prince speak those words. "Why did you speak?" And he immediately went to the palace and he reported to the king and the queen that I heard the prince speak these 4 words. "Why did you speak?" When the prince returned to the palace, the father and the mother asked the prince, "Did you really speak those 4 words?" But the prince was silent. The prince did not answer. And because the prince did not answer, the king and the queen became angry at the hunter and said, "This hunter is telling a lie, he is speaking an untruth, so he should be sent to the gallows." They said, "You must give him capital punishment." And everything was ready to give capital punishment to this hunter. At that time, Gautama Buddha happened to, not Gautama Buddha, but the prince happened to pass by the spot where they wanted to give capital punishment to the hunter. And the prince looked at the hunter and said to him, "Why did you speak? Why did you speak?" The prince meant to say to him that if you had not spoken, you would not have been here on the scaffold. You would not have been here to receive capital punishment. Why did you speak? Why did you speak? My very dear children, this is the lesson that we all need to learn. It is always better to listen than to speak. It is always better to listen than to speak. One day, a man came to Socrates. He said, Socrates, Socrates, I have heard some sensational news which I want to pass on to you. I was in the market making purchases when I heard this, and I said, I must go and tell Socrates. But Socrates told him, wait, my friend, before you tell me, I want to put to you a few questions. The first question is, have you verified the truth of what you are going to tell me? Are you sure it is true? In the market you hear so many things. But tell me, have you verified the truth of what you are going to tell me? Is it true? Is it true? And the man said to him, no, I have not verified the truth. I just heard it and I thought I'll come and tell you. Then the second question Socrates put to him was, are you sure that it is going to serve any useful purpose? If you tell me this thing, is it going to serve any useful purpose? The man thought for a while and he said, no, I don't think it will serve any useful purpose. It was just gossip I just heard and I thought I might come and tell you. Then the third question that Socrates put to him was, whatever you are going to tell me, are you sure it is not going to hurt anybody? It is sweet. It is not going to hurt anybody. The man thought for a while and he said, surely, if the man concerning whom this thing was told to me, if he hears of it, he will feel hurt. Since that day, 2,500 years ago, since that day, this has been the rule of speech. They have called it the rule of speech. Before you utter a single word, you must make sure that it is true, that it is going to be useful, that it is not going to hurt anybody. There are so many things that you tell each other, don't you? You look here, you look there. Oh, Savitri is not here. Let me tell you this thing. But if Savitri comes at that time, you immediately stop. You will not say anything. Why? Because what you are going to say is going to hurt her. These are the three rules of speech. Is it true? What is the second rule? Is it useful? What is the third rule? Is it? Is it not? Is it going to hurt anybody? Therefore, the great ones of humanity have told us that it is always better to be silent than to break the silence and speak a few words. It's only when you are sure that what I am going to speak is better than silence that I should speak those words. But we keep on chattering all the time. We keep on talking all the time. So many people behind our backs, they call us chatterbox. But I must not be a chatterbox myself. Therefore, I should bring my talk to a stop. This is the lesson that I learned when I was in the school, a student. And since then, I have been trying to bear witness to this teaching in my deeds of daily living. I cannot say that I have succeeded, but I am still trying. There are occasions when I just speak without putting to myself this one question: what I am going to say, is it better than silence? If you get an answer in the affirmative, if you get an answer, yes, this is better than silence, then you can speak. I don't know if I have been following this rule always. Sometimes I too have been speaking words which I had better not spoke. But this is something that you can start doing from now. You must ask yourself, before you want to speak something, you must ask yourself, is what I am going to speak now better than silence? If the answer is yes, you can speak. If the answer is no, don't speak. Don't break the silence. Let the silence go on. How many of you would like to do this? Tell me truthfully, tell me honestly. How many of you will try to do this? I know sometimes we will fail. I fail myself sometimes. As I told you, bring your hands down. In a school, hands always go up. A lecturer once came to a school and put this question: those that speak untruth again and again, lift up your hands. All hands were raised. They did not even consider what was the question. They did not think of they just raised their hands, because one person raises her hand, all the other students will raise their hands. But this is a rule which I would feel happy if some of us tried to follow. Not to speak, unless I get the assurance that what I am going to speak is better than silence. There are so many things that are better than silence. We can speak of those things, the teachings of the saints, the holy name of God. When we gather together here in this hall, we do so much of kirtan. Kirtan is better. You shouldn't have done that. No. This was not better than silence. We are like bursting balloons. So many of us, we are like bursting balloons. We are sitting and ta! We'll speak some words. But let us try to put this lesson into practice from now on. We will try not to speak except only when we get the assurance from within that what we are going to speak is better than silence. Is that all right? Huh? Now close your eyes, think for a while, and then raise your hands. How many of you will try to do that? Close your eyes. Think for a while. Now you can lift up. Those of you who will really try to see that whatever we speak is better than silence, raise your hands. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And may God bless you.